And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining today. So, to start off, our first topic is all about Sony PlayStation, or Sony the company, I should say. Now, Sony has been making, how should we call it, has been reaping in terms of generating millions of dollars of sales since they launched the PlayStation 5 late last year, right? And there's been a high demand and low supply, so you could just imagine scalpels making, a killing out of, with a high demand. But not only that, Sony is being sued uh, due to the fact that if you own a PS5, you might encounter this problem. So please take note that your controller or the DualSense controller may be a faulty controller at that, wherein it's common problem with any controller device. So it's not just Sony PlayStation that has this issue wherein it's called a drift. So meaning when you're not using the controller per se, the character that you're using or whatever game you're playing will move by itself slightly, whether it's moving to the left, to the right, or front or back. Obviously, this disrupts the immersion when you're trying to play a game here, especially if it's an RPG type or even an FPS type of game. And question is, does Sony, the company, know about this issue and still, release the game? And what are their remedies in terms of how to address these problems? As we all know, with the exception of what happened with Cyberpunk last time, they're very reluctant or not keen on doing any favors to your customers in terms of customer service and even to the point of refunds, right? So let's take a closer look here. So here we have a law firm. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Chemicals, Swartz, Cleaner, and Donaldson Smith LLP has filed a class action lawsuit against Sony PlayStation, Sony the company, for its DualSense PS5 DualSense controller drift issue, as I mentioned. And they argue that the DualSense controller is defective as it suffers from a drift defect, and the problem is it recording input even when the player is not using it. So, obviously, as a user, you paid 400, 500 or even more for the console, and then to have a defective unit, kills the total experience, right? And obviously, it compromises the DualSense controller's core functionality. So the question is, does Sony knew about this before releasing the product, or was it inevitable issue that would come up with any new release with a new technology, or in this case, new console? But Sony as the company has been made aware of the issue. But the question here is, what does the company or Sony do with the situation here? Now, with regards to repair options, you only have limited options here. So let's see here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, so according to the article, repair options are slim pickings in a sense, and the plaintiff, or they're accusing Sony that failing to disclose this material information to consumers despite being aware of the defect. Now, obviously, proving that is another totally separate matter. But the point here that the you know uh, uh, the suit that is being said here as a result of Sony's unfair, deceptive, or even fraudulent business practices. Owners of DualSense controllers, including the plaintiff as mentioned, have suffered ascertainable loss. Now, I don't know if it's ascertainable loss, but it's a loss in a sense. But you get what you paid for, and they're also stating that it caused injury. I don't know about that. And obviously, there's also stating that they have been harmed by Sony's conduct. Now, unethical issues aside, whether it's intentional or unintentional, that's a difficult thing to prove or disprove here. Anyway, the plaintiffs bring the action to redress Sony's violation of state consumer fraud statutes. Whether they violate any laws, then that's their only way to, go after the company. And as well as the breach of warranty. So will they replace it, fix it, or just fix it and then, not resolve the issue either way? And then the unjust enrichment, obviously this is unfair if Sony did knew that the products that they're selling, in this case the controller, has a faulty feature or a faulty action. Should they have released it in the first place? Meaning, have they done due diligence in terms of quality control to ensure that the product that you're selling at a very not so affordable price, customers expects a lot, right? That the product that you're using is fully formed and has little to no issues here. Now, obviously, in this article, it's mentioned that the plaintiff is seeking monetary relief. Now, how much relief are we talking about? For damages suffered, declaratory relief, and public injunctive relief here. Now, obviously, it's going to be a long process, and obviously, Sony is a big company, and it's going to take a lot before anyone or any law firm can take down the company. So, obviously, the control drift issue, as mentioned, is not an isolated issue for Sony here. Other companies like Sony, Microsoft, and even Nintendo, which I am a owner of a Nintendo Switch console, I have that issue. Thankfully, I won't say thankfully, but my left controller Joy-Con broke with my kids playing with it, so I had to replace it anyway. But experiencing playing the console as it is, if it has drift issues, especially if you want to play, let's say, a fighting game, it has to be precise, and if it doesn't work as intended, it's going to cause an inconvenience and not a enjoyable experience in terms of games, right? So on another related incident, Microsoft is also in hot waters, and Microsoft has been asking the U.S. District Court judges to force plaintiffs in lawsuit over defective Xbox controllers to go individual arbitration. Now, obviously, if you go individual, it makes it easy for Microsoft to deal with individuals rather than as a group or as a whole. Now, there's also cases or lawsuits filed against Nintendo, not just in the United States, but as well as in Europe and in Canada. Now, what led to this? Is it a persistent problem? Was the product not ready? Why is it a common problem for the many manufacturing companies like Sony, Microsoft, and even Nintendo here? And what's the solution here? Obviously, at the end of the day, consumers expects a lot, for paying a lot for the products that they get, and they expect a lot in return as well. Hopefully, things can be settled down. Well, at least in my case, when I bought my PS4, there was no drift issues, as well as going back to the PS3, PS2, because by the time I think the drift issue were to occur, the control already broke by then, was broken, or it broke already by then. Anyway, on a similar note regarding Sony here, now obviously the console is in high demand, and I don't know if Sony missed an opportunity on how to capitalize on this, but once you bought a console, or whether it's digital or not, and you want to I won't say revamp or reskin it in a sense, so that you can personalize it. Obviously, it's not to everyone's taste. If you're looking at a PS5 with what they're offering right now, the white, two-tone white and black combination, I don't know, everyone's in favor of that. So if you want to customize it, actually there was a company earlier, I think late last year or earlier this year, were selling a custom dark plates, but Sony tried to intervene and stop the unofficial accessory sale in the market here. Now, whether some technicalities, are they not allowed, other companies, third-party companies, to sell accessories to sell for the console here? Or is it maybe because Sony is trying to sell their own dark plates? But regardless, when that happened, now D brand, for those who are not familiar, is a very popular company that provides skins for not just your consoles but for your phones, tablets, and even your what do you call this? Even for your laptops and so for all tech gears. And they're daring Sony to sue them in terms of being able to sell those custom dark plates for the PS5 consoles here. So let's see here. Yeah, so as you can see here, obviously it looks better if it's fully black, not compared to when it was has a two-tone white and black combination. And obviously you have to replace the whole plastic from both sides and then replace it with in this case a D-brand custom plates here. Now, whether Sony has a right to sue other companies, because once the console has been released, obviously the owners of those consoles have the right to do whatever they want, whether they want to change the software or even the aesthetics, in this case the skins of the consoles here. And they're offering, let me see here. Yeah, so this is what a typical PS5 would look like, right? A white and black combinations. And if you were to purchase their dark plate, which is worth around $50, around 2,500 pesos, it would, look much better, right? It's expensive, but it's much better. And it's not just a regular black skin here, it's matte black. So it's not as shiny as when they released the PS3 before. And then if you want to add another customization, you have the middle skin you can add also, so for another $12, so around 500 pesos or so, a little bit more. So you can customize it, whether it's matte black as well, white, or even neon yellow here. Now I think the black on black looks much better here. Anyway, going back, so obviously the contention here, it's not considered official if you're Sony here. And I don't know if it's just marketing ploy from the brand, and they're actively encouraging Sony to sue them, so that it creates a commotion with regards to what happened with Customize My Plates way back then. And they were forced to cancel refund orders for a similar product last year, so I was mistaken. And knowing that Sony is a big company and has the resources to sue any individuals or companies, and draw it out, and see who survives in the end. Anyway, going back, so the dark plate, as mentioned, has an optional skin for glossy black for the middle section. And if you want to customize the color, as I mentioned earlier, you have to choose the option of a robot camo and even red code. So, but the problem is, if you're in the Philippines here, if you're planning to buy a D brand skin here, it's still possible. But I think there was a Facebook thread somewhere online that if you're interested, you can order online and they can ship it here, and it will take some time, think about a month or so. But still, at least D brand is not far away, even though they're across the Atlantic here and so forth, or Pacific Ocean, my mistake. Anyway, and obviously converting your PS5 to matte black is not going to be cheap, but heck, you already spent 3, 4, even 500 or even more for your console. So what's a little bit more in trying to pimp out your console here? And as I mentioned, so the plate sells for $49 plus shipping, so you might have to pay more. And the middle skins can cost up to $60 to $61. And I don't know, it depends on the shipping, where you're ordering from around the world, then you might spend more than $60 all the way to $100. So if you're really interested, you can pre-order it now, because it's already selling out like hotcakes. So they're ready to ship by February, and then next in March, and another one in April here. So for those fanatics or interested to pimp their consoles, you can always look for alternatives. I wish we have the brand here of some sort that can customize not just the PlayStation consoles or any consoles at that, but any devices. Similar how the brand does it, put a skin on top of your device. I was thinking of putting a D brand skin on my Dell XPS, which would customize it to the color that I prefer, and whatever designs I put on top of it. Won't that be nice, right? Just similar how you pimp your desktop screen, or even your phone, or even your laptop. So how about the internal and external as well? Anyway, next we have here is about Google's payments to link to French news sites. Now, obviously, Google has been the go-to source for any information that you're looking for. The term Google search, right, is a commonly used term, and if you need to find something, then you use it. You search it on Google. But one of the big contentions here, especially in France, that if you type in, for example, a particular article or news article here, obviously Google's going to link to a particular news website or source. Question is, should those people who created those articles be paid of a certain fee? Now, obviously, Google here is contesting that they shouldn't be paying a fee because they're just linking it. But contrary to what the French government has stated, they are already not complying. They are already compelling Google to pay in an amount of almost $80 million over a span of 3 years to pay one-to-one French news organization, with a new French law requiring Google to pay when it uses snippets from news articles here, which could be big in terms of if this was a precedent, meaning other countries could follow suit in terms of, obviously, Google's search engine keeps tracks of many websites, in this case news articles, and the question here is, should they pay a subscription fee or a fee for linking those websites? The fact that if you link to a particular website, they generate revenue in terms of the advertisements they provide, right? So I think it makes sense. It works both ways. It's not just Google who benefits, but the links or the sites that they're linking should benefit as well. And obviously, the French or the government here gave them some options, limited to say the least. So it was considered somewhat a shotgun marriage in a sense. So let's see here. There you go. So as I mentioned, so Google insisted that it would not pay a penny to link the news articles in France or anywhere else. Then when Spain passed legislation to force Google Pay to link to Spanish news organization way back in 2014, then Google responded by shutting down Google News in Spain. Now, will they do that for other countries who's going to compel them to pay? And I think it's looking like they're greedy in a sense. They don't want to pay, but they want to take advantage of the technology that they have in terms of the resource that they have. Well, in this case, the French government or legislation in this case left Google with little room to maneuver in terms of competitive authority, and warned that delisting French news sites from the Google search results or removing snippets is constituted or would be considered an anti-competitive attack on French newspaper, which is one of the main issues that in the US, where they're tackling the antitrust issue for the four main tech companies, namely Amazon, Google, what else? Amazon, Google, Facebook, and then Apple company, right? So is it fair? You're generating millions and billions of dollars. So, asking to pay, even it's in the millions or hundreds of millions, it's small compared to how much they're generating, right? And obviously, is it fair also for the news websites in France, where their sources, or meaning their articles, are being used readily? Like in my case, I cite my sources to discuss in this live stream, right? So should they be paid, or is it allowed to discuss it anymore in the future? Only time will tell, right? Anyway, so the law in this case in France is requiring Google to use the snippet, so they don't have the option of not using it. So technically, Google cannot use it and have to use it if there's a search regarding a news article in France, and they have to pay a certain fee in a sense. So what Google did here was somewhat interesting. They responded by creating a new product called the Google News Showcase. Okay, so it's a licensing arrangement in a sense wherein French news contents for showcase. So if they were to highlight it, so if it's in the top of your search engine, then Google has to pay them a certain fee. Now, whether the fee is justifiable, reasonable, is it enough compared to the other news site? It's difficult to say here. And obviously, France could be the model that is a precedent for other countries to follow suit here. And an example, as mentioned here, is the Australian government considering passing a similar law wherein, that Google's, obviously Google, you shouldn't be threatening big, what do you call this? Big markets like in Europe and Oceania as well as in Asia. If they were to do that in, let's say, in India, I don't think their business platform or model would crumble in a second, because they have to tailor fit to the, not say whims, but the requirements of any governments that they are trying to do business with, right? And they cannot just say that, take it or leave it stands here. And in this case, if that were to happen, guess what? On that, Microsoft, another competing company that offers a search engine, namely Bing, which has a low market share in Australia, could take a full advantage and has taken full advantage due to the controversy. And, it's always up to Google to come up with a strategy whether they would allow other companies to gain a market share, or would they allow, for both parties to win. It's a win-win situation for both parties here. And it's not going to go away easily, because if you look at different countries, they have different requirements, and is that considered fair or unfair? And obviously, it's not just the countries that they have to deal with. Now, on the other hand here, other French news industries are not happy about the deal itself, in a sense that the news industry group stating that the negotiated deal only represents some French news organizations, so not the totality. So again, the deal that they made, paying the sum of almost $80 million, is it enough? And maybe they could negotiate in the near future so that they are paid, what would be the standard here. And I think that's a dialogue that needs to be discussed in the near future here. And obviously, the opaque agreements doesn't ensure that a fair treatment for all news publishers would be achieved here. And obviously, how do they calculate the formula? It's not made public is another issue here. According to Spiel, the union representing independent online news organization. Now, whether they're saying, whether it's true, whether Google took advantage of the situation, and again, at the end of the day, if you're going to make a case, obviously you need leverage for a particular situation to gain that tactical advantage in a sense. But what's important here is, obviously, Google is not earning revenues from linking websites for free anymore. They have to pay a certain fee. Now, whether fee is fair or not, that's for the courts or for the governments to decide, so that when news agencies here or news companies are saying that it's not enough, then they have to change it or update it or increase it, whatever they want to do about it. And I think that can apply in other countries as well here. Now, here's some rumors that's been it's been stating for quite some time now. If you're an Apple user here, obviously they've just recently launched the Apple MacBook Air last year, and then the recent launch of the iPhone 12. Now, there have been some discussion with regards to an Apple releasing a foldable iPhone. Now, if you're an Apple user, are you interested in having a phone that is foldable? Obviously, the question here is, does it make sense? Should Apple be pursuing this trend in terms of like what Samsung is doing now with the Z Fold phone, which is, obviously Apple is known for its high price products, but in terms of their core market, that if they can afford it, if you offer something them totally different from what they've been offering previously. So you have the iPhone, then you have the iPad, then you combine it to have a foldable iPhone. But the question here, won't that be a source of cannibalization in a sense? Instead of two distinct products that you're selling in the market, a tablet of sorts for the iPad, totally different from an iPhone for its phone features and portability and so forth, then you combine it to one. Are you trying to say that you're trying to replace the functionality of both a phone, a typical iPhone, and a iPad here? Anyway, it's been long rumored and it's been stated that they plan to release a foldable phone sometime in 2023. And one of the key contentions here is they're saying that the display is going to be around 7.3 to 7.6 inches big. So, it's a small iPad, would be the same size. And the feature here is using an OLED panel here. Company Omdia Global Communications and Digital Media Research Organization stated that, or predicts that, Apple may launch it sometime in 2023, as I mentioned, and included they would add an activity pen to its foldable iPhone. So similar to how the Note was introduced, and then the iteration of introducing the Galaxy Z phone right now. So whether that would entice new customers to buy a more expensive product, obviously, I think Apple is thinking that that's the trend that they're going right now. Let's see here. Yeah, so you can see here. So if looking at the device here, yeah, it's foldable, but it goes back to the same problem as when the Z Fold was introduced before, right? That the hinge is the weak point of the device here, and typically the first generation of foldable phones tend to be the worst one until they release the second generation, which is the Z Fold 2, which is a better improvement compared to the previous one. But it makes a compelling case, right? If you're into that notion that you want the portability of a typical phone, iPhone, and then you fold it so that it would, work like as a tablet, then there's a market. But how big of a market? I'm not so sure about that. But, having the pen support, like how the Galaxy Note works, how are you going to include that? Would it be separate, or would it, be the same as the one in the Note, wherein you can store it inside the device itself? So that's going to be a tricky situation. Would it look like just that Apple is copying what Samsung is doing, or vice versa here? Anyway, Apple was testing foldable iPhones with their range of display. According to a report from a Taiwanese website, Economic Daily News, claimed that 2 prototype foldable iPhones has passed internal tests. So meaning they're in the process. So whether they release it, it's just a matter of when, not if, they're going to release one. And the question is, will there be a big market for that one? And as I mentioned, so the latest would be in 2023. So could be earlier. It depends on the progress that they've made. Now, the rumors, as stated, has been working for a foldable iPhone for quite some time, as early as 2016. And to show proof that the company has already filed a significant number of patents related to a foldable iPhone. So I think one of the main issues that they have to address is the hinge itself regarding the foldable issue, so that it's sturdy enough, but it's flexible enough, and it doesn't break the sense of immersion when you're using a typical phone, right? Because if you unfold it, you see the crease between the two devices, or the folded device, then it breaks the immersion in a sense. So, and are you going to pay, $1,000, $2,000 for an and not a so enjoyable experience, But if you have the extra cash, why not, right? So we'll see. Anyway, next, speaking of entertainment here now, I'm sure you've heard of many news or previous discussion wherein companies or gaming developers or gaming publishers like this one try to translate a game into whether a film or into a TV series. So a good example is The Witcher, a very popular game from CD Projekt Red, which they created, which was based from a comics, I think. And then they created a TV series now being shown in Netflix, which I've seen. So that's the best case scenario. But for other instances, is it practical for creating a TV show or even a film that is based on a what do you call this? Based on a game. Now, the very popular and controversial game of The Last of Us has been hinted to be in the talks or is in the process of creating a TV show already. Now, would the concept of The Last of Us be a compelling case for people to watch, similar to how The Walking Dead premise is, but with a slight twist to the core story here? Obviously, what made the Last of Us story made so compelling, obviously, it's not the gameplay per se, but the characters that is involved, the main protagonist here, right? You have Joel and Ellie here. So the story between the two was the driving point that made it successful in the first part. In the second part, not so much, right? Because of the controversy when they tried to pivot into a different character altogether, which I wasn't so for it. But if it sold a lot of copies, good for them. But the question is, what type of story are they going to introduce here? Is it still the same based on the game itself, or will they change it? Because I don't think they could create a TV series that's what already done in the games itself, right? And obviously, The Last of Us, as mentioned in the article here in AndroidAuthority.com, the show is going to premiere in HBO here. So HBO has been known to release some of the most popular TV series, namely the Game of Thrones. Then, so in this case, they're betting that the Last of Us TV series will be a big hit as well, which was developed by Naughty Dog, the company, and whether it's going to be successful, it's another matter here. So let's take a closer look here. There you go. So as mentioned, so for those who are not familiar with the story behind The Last of Us, it's a non-single-player narrative campaign or a third-person action adventure. The game centers on the main character of Joel as he tries to stay alive in a world of few remaining humans who are fighting to survive. So a survival genre where there's a virus infecting people, it's a typical apocalyptic scenario here. And then the character of Ellie, wherein she's a girl that being smuggled to another group where they find out that she may be a possible cure for the virus that's spreading throughout the world in their world. So how they translate that into the TV series is a very big question mark here. And how are they going to write the story? And what's interesting here is obviously who's going to play those main characters here is another. Now, before I discuss who's the main character, who's going to play the characters. Now, what's interesting here, it mentions that guess who's going to be the creative director, also be a co-creator for the HBO series here. Neil Druckmann here. So, I don't know if he has any background in terms of writing a story for a TV series or even a movie, and he wants to have footprint in there. Hopefully, he does a great job. Otherwise, you're destroying a great franchise that you have created in the first place here. Along with him will be Craig Mazin, known for creating the HBO hit series Chernobyl. And then producers are Caroline Strauss, who's known for their role in the Game of Thrones. You have Kantemir Balagov, Russian director known for Beanpole, who will be directing the pilot of the show. Now, here's the interesting part. Who's going to play the lead characters here now? I don't know if it's speculation or it's already been casted that the lead character of Joel would be played by none other than Pedro Pascal. For those who are not familiar, Pedro Pascal is known for the Mandalorian TV series, which is in turmoil right now, whether Pedro is going to continue as the lead character here. But he's also known for playing a character in the Game of Thrones series way back in season 4, which I saw, with a pretty spectacular death scene as mentioned in the article here. And he also starred in movies like Kingsman, The Equalizer 2, and the recent Wonder Woman sequel. And also a Netflix series, Narcos, which I haven't seen. So I'm looking forward to that one. But either way, so is Pedro Pascal the best fit for this type of role? well, he's the one of the most popular actors right now. So obviously he's an act one, would you say one of the best actors right now? So being able to play different roles makes him believable in a sense. And can't wait if the chemistry between the main characters Joel and Ellie here, in this case Pedro Pascal, and then for the role of Ellie, is going to be played by a former Game of Thrones cast member by the name of let me see, what's Bella Ramsey, let's see. Yeah, let's see here. So there you go. So Bella Ramsey is the one who played the character in Game of Thrones, wherein she played the lead house of Mormont, the Lady Lyanna Mormont. So obviously you need to play a young female lead here. So I don't know if she looks like Ellie in the game, but it does not matter. The question here is the character believable in the TV show? So the combination of Pedro Pascal here, so let's see. Obviously, it's going to, I think they need to put more white hairs in with Mr. Pascal here to make it more believable in terms of the aging process of what do you call this, for Joel here. But I think Pedro can do it, and hopefully it's going to be a big hit for what do you call this, for HBO Max here. Anyway, where was I? There you go. So as I mentioned, and it was mentioned here that the series will begin very soon. So they're going to start shooting sometime this year, and the series could begin showing for audiences to watch by next year, 2022. So it's going to be really soon. So hopefully they can get the story right. And I don't know how are they going to replicate similar how Game of Thrones is, just a few episodes, maybe 8 episodes per season, or 12 episodes. Hopefully they have a good story behind it. Otherwise, it's going to destroy the image of of what they built with the franchise of The Last of Us here. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so continuing. So in terms of technology, so electric vehicle is a popular, mode of transport that's being popularized because of environmental issues that's happening around the world. Now, Tesla is the leading manufacturer of electric vehicles, right? And one of the main ways of their expanding is not just concentrating in the Northern American region, as well as opening a gigafactory in Europe, as well as in China. They're now, putting up shop in India as well, one of the biggest markets in the world here. And obviously, Tesla is not resting on their laurels in terms of, other companies trying to go into this EV industry as well. So you have the likes of Toyota, GM, Ford. Actually, there's a company we'll be talking about again at the end of the discussion. Many car companies are going into the electric vehicle or electric car concept here, and whether it succeeds or not, we'll see here. So Tesla plans to set up an electric car manufacturing unit here in southern Indian state of Karnataka. Sorry, my mistake. Karnataka. So I think it's a hub for tech companies, so that's where they're setting up shop here. So let's see here. There you go. So as mentioned, so Karnataka is in the city of Bengaluru. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Bengaluru. So it's a hub for global technologies company. So it makes sense for Tesla to set up shop there. And obviously, Musk has already tweeted several times about the company's foray into the Indian market. Obviously, it's not just Tesla who has been investing heavily in India. You have other tech companies with the likes of Google, Facebook, Amazon trying to get a market share in that big market. Obviously, if the Indian government has nothing to say about it to protect the interest of the businesses or the small businesses that are having a difficult time, shifting to a more progressive approach in a sense in terms of shifting on online concept of businesses. And it's inevitable to innovate your business, but how does this affect the traditional business brick and mortar system? It's a totally different discussion altogether. But either way, the point of Indian opening their market to other companies, in this case the tech companies, is especially in the electric vehicle, is to reduce the dependency on its oil dependence and to cut down on pollution, and also to promote electric vehicles, which has been stymied by the lack of investment in manufacturing and infrastructure such as charging station. And from the track record of how Tesla has been improving leaps and bounds in terms of their technology and implementation, has gone a long way since day one. Now, in this case, to boost investment, India is planning to offer 4.6 or almost $5 billion in incentives for companies setting up advanced battery manufacturing facilities last year. So, it's a good conducive way. So you can see many major markets are trying to capitalize on the shift to EV vehicles. Whether it pans out, we have to wait and see how Tesla, brings the latest. I think they're trying to introduce the latest electric vehicle, right? You have the Cybertruck is one, then the Tesla Model 2. I don't know if that's the right model that they're going to release in the next iteration here. But it looks promising, right? And it looks good for India for more investment and the opportunity to have an electric vehicle in their country in the very near future, and for Tesla to expand their market reach as well as have a wider reach, as I mentioned. Anyway, for some local news. Now, obviously, we've discussed for quite some time from last year all the way to the present that we're still in this somewhat limbo situation wherein the pandemic is still there, but we're assuming that it's already gone in a sense, and we're trying to go back to some normalcy or semblance of normalcy of our daily life with our personal lives and work and so forth. And the DOH has stated or has communicated with other agencies and talked to some of their colleagues in the government that to see to it that in order to boost the economy, they need to reopen the business. And one of the main businesses is the leisure business here. So they're going to allow the leisure business to resume, such as movie theaters. Is it theaters? Yeah, theaters, interactive game arcades, libraries, archives, museums, and so forth, right? And the question here is it the right time or right choice to do it now, whether in terms of resuming normal activities? It's as if that the pandemic did not occur, and yet they're recommending that people should balance their discipline to follow minimum health protocols. Now, question is it safe? If you can guarantee the safety of any individual going out of their houses, whether it's a young adult or an adult one or kids or children in the first place, is our main concern here. Because once you allow kids to go out of their houses, obviously you cannot control. They're not aware of the severity of the situation, that they might make a mistake, they might contract the virus or even spread the virus, which is the worst thing that could happen here. And the question here is, are the number of cases of the virus has been dropping, or has it been increasing? Because either way, if we cannot control it in the first place, resuming everything else that is back to normal is a very dangerous and could be costly in the long run here. Now, the decision to loosen restriction is a collegial decision. So meaning everyone in the government, in particular the interagency task force, is in agreement that they should allow the businesses. But question again, is it safe? Meaning, can those businesses guarantee the safety? Right? If it were just adults who's going to use those facilities, it's one thing. But are we allowing other children, young kids to be able to use those facilities is another matter. Now, based on their statement, the increased capacity for religious services will be allowed from an existing 30% capacity to 50%. So I guess for adults, I think, you know, you can market it in such a way, a social marketing program that encourages people to be, you know, practicing, you know, social distancing, wearing masks, face masks, and all of those things, right? But, you know, encouraging, you know, traditional cinemas is one of my issues here, that if you allowed people to watch in cinemas, will there be a one seat apart rule here? How many people can watch it, and who can watch it, and so forth, right? So, as I mentioned, it includes driving schools, traditional cinemas, video and interactive game arcades are allowed. You have libraries, archives, museums, cultural centers, meetings, conferences, exhibitions, and limited social events. Now, if they're going to allow that, does it make sense? Because if it's not yet safe, especially, you know, if you go to libraries, unless you have school, that's why you need to use libraries. But we're not opening, you know, we're not going back to face anytime soon. So I don't know to see the urgency here. And I think if it's for an adult engagement, for example, you have a meeting, you have to go to a facility, or whether it's in the office or somewhere else, then it makes sense. But encouraging a large gathering like in exhibitions, right? Are you going to limit the capacity here, or are you going to allow many people? And as from our previous experience, right, when we resume our reopen the malls, what happened there right after the lockdown? Everyone went out, and, you know, all protocols were neglected, they did not follow, and, you know, that can be that can be dangerous and catastrophic, in which we don't want a recurrence of that happening again. Anyway, one can be hopeful. Anyway, finally, for some interesting story here. So regarding electric vehicles, we just discussed earlier. Now, it's not just Tesla who's in the market. You know, that's just Toyota, the main manufacturers, Ford and GM, as mentioned. We also have McLaren, one who makes, you know, the F1 vehicles and selling one of the fastest cars in the world, is also trying to enter the electric vehicle market here by bringing the hybrid vehicle called the Artura here. So the Artura is a McLaren model, as mentioned, which is called a supercar. Yeah, it runs very fast. It features a hybrid gas-electric powertrain and a lightweight chassis. So incorporating electric drivetrain, it's able to drop 2 cylinders. So typically it uses a 3-liter V8 engine. It now uses a V6 because of the ability to use gas-electric powertrain here. So let's take a closer look here. Looks nice. So despite the lime green color, but I like the design. You know, it's a typical, what do you call this? Typical McLaren, right? And as mentioned, so I wouldn't say it's slow. I wouldn't say it's very fast as well. It's not the fastest in the sense. It only has 680 horsepower, but, you know, in terms of speed, you know, jumping from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, in my book, is very fast. So if you want to travel into 120 miles per hour, you know, you just need less than 9 seconds, a little over 8 seconds to be precise. And it can go to a top speed of 200 miles. I don't know if you can do that in our streets here. Even if you go to the highways here, or even the skyway, I don't know if a car can reach that fast with the limited highways that we have here. But, you know, if they can introduce it, if people can buy it, can afford it, why not? So just to give you some idea what the vehicle has, it has an 8-gear gearbox. So it manages all the power sending to its rear wheels. So there's no mechanical reverse gear, rather than an electric motor that manages the task here. So being able to transfer speed quickly from 1 to 2 to 3 all the way to 6 gear, you know, or 8 gear, sorry, packs a wallop. Now, the feature I mentioned earlier, it's a electric vehicle, has a 7.4 kilowatt lithium ion battery pack here. Now, it's good for 18 miles of electric mile range. So it needs 2.5 hours of recharge the battery. And I think that's one of the main issues. We're still waiting for the technology to catch up in terms of, you know, for all the advantages of electric vehicle provides, but the problem here is the recharge time. Not similar to, you know, regular fuel, combustible fuel, that when you go to a gas station, you just wait a few minutes, it fills up, then you can go. Until such a time that, batteries can do the same thing, you just have to wait a few minutes. Minutes is acceptable. If it takes more than 30 minutes, it's too long, right? And then you can speed off and then, go on your way, and has the mileage typical, comparable, or even better for a fuel dependent engine. It's going to take some time. And what's interesting here is if you were to primarily use the silent E mode or electric mode, it can run up to 81 miles per hour, which is pretty fast, right? And I don't think you can expect more if you're city driving here in our backyard here. Now, obviously, McLaren is known for a whole range of electrified vehicles. They have the pure EV, and then obviously one of the main issues that they have to contend with is if you use battery, it's going to be heavy, so it reduces the speed and handling here. So the ways to address that is by incorporating carbon fiber in your construction as well as aluminum. So the weight here is considered light in a sense for a hypercar. It's only around 3,300 pounds, so not bad for a vehicle of this stature here. So it can run fast here. Anyway, so let's see here. Can we see other designs here? There you go. So you can see the interior. It's nothing to look at. It's a basic features here. So don't expect to get a lot of features from a supercar here, because you're expected to, have a very fast car in a sense. And as mentioned earlier, the cabin features has a spiffy design. Yeah, it looks attractive, but don't expect a lot. That you have a very good sound system, cup holders, and what such that you're used to with the typical vehicle or cars in your house. Anyway, and obviously, what they're offering is ambient lighting, offering different themes. How much are they offering for this vehicle? Didn't mention here. Oh, I'm assuming it's going to be expensive, right? In the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Anyway, at the end of the day, improving electrical capabilities for any vehicle, decreasing the amount of cabling in the vehicle, was able to reduce the weight by as much as 10%. So, it's a big deal for supercars if you want to move fast. Weight is your enemy here. Well, hopefully you can see one running around our city here in Manila here. Anyway, that concludes our discussion for today. Anyway, thanks for joining me again. If you have any questions, feel free to leave your comments down below and I'll get back to you. For any articles that was discussed today, I'll leave the link in the description below. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel. Take care.